never imagined I would find myself standing before the world like this. For decades, it was my role to pass judgment, to weigh evidence, to believe in the absolute authority of my gavel. But today, I do not come to judge. Today, I come to make an admission. Today, I come to offer an apology. The story is already known across the world. A $500 million lawsuit, built on the shakiest of grounds, was launched with the full force of American law and directed at a man who stood for his country. Ibrahim Trayori, your name has travelled continents, carried not by scandal, but by an act of defiance. And yet, I was among those who allowed the machinery of doubt, of suspicion, of arrogance to move against you. I believed the things I was told. I believed the whispers in the corridors of power, the carefully crafted reports, the arguments that dressed greed in the language of the law. I believed justice was being served when, in truth, it was being manipulated. And so the lawsuit was born. A lawsuit that claimed to protect rights, but in truth threatened to strip a young nation of its very dignity. A lawsuit that claimed to uphold order, but in reality became a tool of disorder. A lawsuit that should never have been allowed to exist. Ibrahim, I say this to you not as a man of the bench, not as a figure wrapped in the authority of robes and titles, but as a man of flesh and blood who has been forced to see the error in his own steps. For years, I have sat in judgment of others, pronouncing verdicts, weighing arguments, believing in those moments that my decisions represented the highest standard of fairness. But now, standing in the shadow of my own actions, I must confront this truth, that even a judge can be wrong. I was wrong. I was profoundly wrong, and I apologize. Those words may sound simple, but for me, they carry the weight of all I failed to see, all I failed to acknowledge, and all I allowed to happen. When I permitted that lawsuit to move forward, I believed I was safeguarding order. I thought I was protecting the values of law and justice I have sworn to uphold my entire life. But what I truly did was lend my authority to a cause that had nothing to do with justice. It was about power. It was about influence. It was about fear disguised as legality. And in giving that fear legitimacy, I betrayed not only my oath as a judge but my own conscience as a man. You, Ibrahim, became the target of a machinery that did not understand you, did not seek to understand you, and did not care to understand the struggle of your people. And instead of questioning that machinery, instead of holding it accountable, I became a part of it. I let the words of others, the polished arguments of those with vested interests, blind me to the reality on the ground. The reality of a young leader striving to lift his country from centuries of exploitation. I allowed myself to believe your resistance was reckless, when in truth, it was the purest form of courage. I cannot undo the months of pressure that lawsuit placed upon you. I cannot take back the doubts it seeded among your allies. Nor can I erase the unease it created within your people. But what I can do is speak honestly now, with no shields, no excuses, and no pretenses. I can admit to you, Ibrahim, and to the world, that my actions were wrong, that I stood on the wrong side of justice, that I lent my authority to a faucet when I should have been defending truth. And I know an apology cannot repair everything. I know that in the grand story of your nation's struggle, these words may seem small. But words matter, and silence would only serve to deepen the wound. That is why I choose to break my silence, to tell you before the eyes of Africa and the world that I recognize the harm caused, and I am determined that I will not be complicit in such harm again. Ibrahim, I see now what I refused to see then. You are not the villain painted be. I was wrong, profoundly wrong, and I apologize. Not in private, not hidden within legal documents, but in the open, where truth must live. I apologize to you, Ibrahim Trayori. I apologize to your people. I apologize to every citizen of Burkina Faso whose pride and sovereignty were insulted by the shadow of that lawsuit. This apology is not a closing argument. It is not a final verdict. It is a beginning of accountability, a beginning of humility, and a beginning of change in the way power views Africa. And if nothing else, may these words prove that even those who sit in the highest chambers of authority must sometimes kneel before the truth. I know my words may not bring comfort. I know that no mere statement of apology, no declaration from a distant courtroom, can erase the sleepless nights, the anxiety, or the burden of uncertainty I placed upon your shoulders. I know they cannot rewind the hours you faced international scrutiny, when partners and allies looked on with suspicion, when the weight of a $500 million lawsuit threatened to overshadow the vision you carry for your nation. I know they cannot undo the ripple of doubt that spread among your people, the whispers that questioned your resolve, or the moments when hearts may have wavered simply because the world seemed to doubt you. I understand this fully because for too long I underestimated the real cost of my actions, the human and national toll that my mistakes could inflict. But words, as fragile as they may appear, do matter. They are the vessel through which acknowledgement and responsibility travel. They are the first step toward correcting wrongs, toward rebuilding trust, and toward showing that even those who hold power can recognize error and attempt to make amends. Silence, by contrast, would only compound the harm. Silence would allow misconceptions to fester. Silence would validate the misguided notion that authority alone is the measure of justice. Silence would deny you, Ibrahim, that is why I choose to speak. Not behind closed doors where secrecy might shield me from accountability. Not in carefully written memos hidden in legal archives, never to see the light of day. I choose to speak openly, directly, and unequivocally before the world because the world deserves to know the truth. The people of Africa, the leaders of other nations, the citizens observing from thousands of miles away, they all deserve to hear that even in the halls of American power, mistakes are recognized, errors are admitted, and apologies are made when wrongs are done. I speak knowing that my words cannot immediately restore what was lost. I speak knowing that your people may still feel the echoes of doubt that I helped create. I speak knowing that rebuilding trust requires not only acknowledgement but also sustained action. Yet, this is the start. This is the moment where accountability begins, where honesty is placed above pride, where the weight of authority bends to the weight of conscience. Ibrahim, I understand now that leadership is not simply about titles or recognition, but about the burdens carried quietly, the sacrifices made without applause, and the resilience required to stand when the world is poised against you. I understand that the sleepless nights I cannot undo, the scrutiny I cannot remove, were part of the larger test of your character, of your nation's resolve. And yet it was my role, my responsibility, to ensure that you face such trials without being hindered by an injustice that could have been prevented. That I failed in this is my deepest regret. By speaking now, I aim not to absolve myself entirely, nor to diminish the gravity of my missteps. Instead, I wish to shine a light on the truth that the law, when misapplied, can harm even those who act with integrity. That authority, when exercised without humility, can become a weapon rather than a shield. And that words, even after years of silence or misjudgment, have the power to begin the healing. I also speak because the world needs to witness a rare and essential truth. Accountability is not just for those without power. It is also for those who sit at the pinnacle of authority, who make decisions that echo across borders, who have the capacity to influence nations. If those who hold power cannot acknowledge their mistakes, then the very concept of justice is hollow. And so I speak. I speak to you, Ibrahim. I speak to your people. I speak to Africa. I speak to the world. Let these words mark a turning point. Let them be the first tremor in a larger movement toward respect, fairness, and humility. Let them show that even in positions long considered untouchable, recognition of wrongdoing is possible. And let them remind all who hear them that silence in the face of injustice is never acceptable. For too long I was silent. For too long I misjudged. For too long I failed to see the truth. But today I choose not silence. Today I choose accountability. Today I speak. And in speaking, I hope to restore at least a measure of trust. New chat.